Ms. Caldwell?
Councilmember Edney,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Silva,
Present.
Mayor Vegas Walker,
Here.
Councilmember Solomon,
Here.
Councilmember Sanders.
Here.
If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we come this evening with our heads bowed and our hearts are humbled. We also come with hearts that are filled with thanksgiving, thankful for being able to be residents of a city, of a state, and of a nation that's free. Lord, as we come recognizing all of our blessings, we ask that you would look upon those who have been so misfortuned by earthquakes, and please wrap your arms of protection around them. For those who are grieving for lost loved ones, we ask that you would touch them with your hand of mercy. Lord, as we remember those who are suffering at this time, we also ask that you would remember those on the battlefield who continue to fight that we can enjoy the freedoms of this country. We ask that you would keep them in your care. We lift them up to you, Lord, and ask that you would bless them, care for them, and give them the courage they need in order to remain steadfast. These and all blessings we ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The council did meet in closed session this afternoon at noon, and we'd now like a report from our city attorney, Mr. Hernandez.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. The board adjourned, the council adjourned to closed session at approximately 12:02 p.m. Member Edney arrived shortly after going into closed session, and Council Member Sanders arrived at 12:04. The council did hear a report from its negotiator, Terry Brownlee, regarding the various groups, and there is action to be taken with regard to the unrepresented police management, so that would have to be taken in open session. There's nothing else to report with regard to labor negotiations, and with regard to anticipated litigation, the council heard a report from its attorney, and there's no action to report with regard to that. The city attorney and the associate attorney left at 12:30, and then the council considered the evaluations of city attorney and secretary to the council, and it's my understanding that the council adjourned at 1 p.m.
Correct, Mr. Hernandez, with no action taken. At this point, I'd ask for a motion to add resolution of City Council pertaining to unrepresented police management employees.
Move to add.
Motion by Sanders, second by Solomon. Please ballot. No? Try again. Very good. As long as that's in front of us, why don't we go ahead and take action on this item? What's before us here is a resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro identifying, recognizing, and establishing terms and conditions of employment for unrepresented police management employees, known as unrepresented police management employees.
I move for approval of said resolution.
Second.
We have a motion by Silva, second by Sanders, and that would be resolution number 1010. Please ballot.
And the motion carries 5-0.
Very good, thank you. At this point, we have a scheduled presentation, our monthly report by the El Centro Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Bill Dubois on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the opportunity to come before you periodically and communicate the issues that are in front of our body, the El Centro Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau. I want to invite all of you to the air show Gala, which is taking place at the Navy base on March 19th. We hope that all of you, as well as other members of the city population, will come to the Navy base on March 19th and join us for the Air Show Gala. We want to show a lot of support for the Navy base since, once again, they have scheduled their air show on a day that does not conflict with the fair. We want to show them how appreciative we are of that. Also, the Chamber is quite concerned about the city's bid documents for the new firehouse. The issue at the Chamber right now is the exclusion of local contractors from this project. I have some personal experience with 30 years of living in 4 different fire stations, and I'm familiar with fire station life and the requirements of fire stations. Every agency of government thinks they have a special, unique need for their facilities, and they need a specialty contractor to build that building. Some examples of specialty buildings I'm familiar with that I've worked in and been inside, and not only have I worked in, but I've also inspected as a fire inspector, include buildings like the Law Enforcement Coordinating Center, the FBI building, the DEA building, and some other specialty buildings in our county. They have extremely specialized needs, such as security, the storage of explosives and destructive devices, the storage and use of Class 3 firearms, communications and electronics, and other specialty needs that are extreme, yet those buildings were all built by local contractors. If you exclude the local contractors from the opportunity to bid on this and you get an out-of-town contractor, the only local benefit is from a few hotels and restaurants that out-of-town employees are going to spend money at, they're going to spend their per diem money at as they build the city's new fire station. No local people will be able to pay or catch up on a late mortgage payment or a late car payment because they won't be employed to build this project. Now, I've spoken to some city officials who say, well, I'm sure the out-of-town contractor is going to hire some local people or some local subs, so there will be some local jobs that will result out of this. Well, if that's the case, make it a requirement of the bid documents that the out-of-town contractor has to hire the majority of his work and purchase the majority of the supplies from local contractors and suppliers. I am not familiar of any studies, any peer-reviewed studies that demonstrate that local contractors cannot build fire stations. And I want to know what's going to happen in 6, 7, or 10 years when there's a problem, when the apparatus floor starts to crack, break up, or when a wall separates, and your general contractor is in Ohio, or Texas, or Modesto, and you try to get some satisfaction from that contractor. If a local contractor built this station and has an office just up the road from the firehouse, it's going to be kind of hard for him to ignore you. But some general contractor from out of state is just going to tell you, sorry, that's your problem. And I don't think it's as easy to sue a guy out of state than it is the guy that's down the street if the building isn't performing like it's supposed to. I didn't come to debate this issue. I just wanted to express the Chamber of Commerce's view on this matter and to express our profound disappointment in these bid documents that exclude local contractors.
Mr. Dubois?
Sure.
If I could just add a comment, and I'm concerned, although I understand your concern and the Chamber's concern, I'm concerned about the spin that's being put on this. Let's be very clear of what the issue is. It is not, the bid documents effectively may cause concern for the ability of local contractors, but that was not the point. The point, and what you're actually pointing out, is that the bid documents state that you must have had experience building fire stations. Now, effectively, that may be your point, that because we haven't built our fire stations in Imperial County locally, that has an effect. But the bid documents do not say no local bidders can bid on it. So let's be very clear about what the reality of what was in those bid documents, not that this city council or staff recommended that we not have local bidders. And I would suggest, even though we're not here to debate this, that I think at least in the surface, you should look at the situation of what we're concerned with, which is a building that has to last 50 or 60 years. And while I know, and I don't think anybody in this room would go out and hire a swimming pool contractor who has never ever built a pool before to build their swimming pool, and we can go down a whole list of things that you would expect to hire when you went out to entertain bids in your own private situation. You'd want somebody that has some experience doing it. So I put that out there, and we don't want to debate this, but I'm concerned about the spin that's going to go out and say this council or this city said no local contractors. That's not what was said.
And I never said that.
Yes, that's exactly what you said.
If I may, what I would like to do, I think you raise a very interesting issue. And what I would like to do with the consent of the council is refer this particular item to our representative to the chamber to work with the chamber and staff and the city manager to perhaps debate, clarify, resolve issues with regard to the fire station.
The chamber will work with the city on any issue you ask us to, and we'd be glad to do that.
So specifically, though, what I wanted to convey is that we will take an active role in addressing this particular issue through our representative to the chamber.
Thank you. And yes, I realize that there's nothing in the documents that specifically excludes local contractors. And I will stipulate to that and agree with that. It is merely the result of the language of the bid documents. The result is no one local was able to bid. And the chamber's point is that's not, those parts of the bid document that have the result of excluding locals, the chamber feels are not necessary in the bid documents. Okay, that's the report from the Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate the opportunity to come before the council and look forward to working with you on this or any issue. And we'll see you the next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Mr. Guo. Okay, at this time, we will turn to our consent agenda. I will note for Mr. Hagan that we'll ask for a point of clarification after we take action on the consent agenda. Any items to be pulled? If not, I would look for a motion to approve items 2 through 9.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Edney, second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Solomon, would you like to address
Yes.
the...
I had a chance, I talked to you about this earlier today, Mr. Hagan, about the item number 8, where in your narrative you had indicated that 6 of the 7 contracts,
5 of the 6.
5 of 6.
5 of 6,
Yes.
5 of 6 were local, and yet when I went through, I found that there were 2 that had addresses in their contracts, agreements, that were from out of the area. One is from Corona, and the other one was from San Diego. And so I thought, since it didn't really say that in the narrative that you gave us, that it might be very well for you to come up and explain that. And the reason why I really wanted it to be explained is because I think sometimes people don't understand that this council and this city does a outstanding job of trying to make sure that local people have an opportunity to participate in our contracts or anything else we do. We know that times are hard for businesses. Times are hard for individuals that are working. And so our job is to try to make sure whenever possible that we are making sure that bids and all of these other things are given to, first priority are given to local people. I think in this particular incident with you, if I'm not mistaken, there was a preference given to local vendors to help make sure that they were given an opportunity to participate in this bidding process, but I'll let you explain it.
Yes, I think we had over 20 applicants, consultants for the on-call engineering services contracts with the city. We selected 6. The one out of the city firm, or out of the area firm, is the DMC Design Group from Corona. They did do the 8th Street Colonia project design. Very good set of plans. Project went really well. The other companies, 4 out of 5 are right here in the city, and the other one is in Imperial. So they're all local firms. We gave specific preference to the local firms to ensure that the local economy would be improved.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that gets left out when we're talking about what the city is doing to help local businesses. So
Yes.
thank you very much for taking the
Thank
time
you
to come
for-
up and
Can I ask a related question? Do each of these firms, Terry, have a specific expertise that will be soliciting, or how would you go about selection process when there is a need to retain the firm?
It varies. They provide surveying, design, underground soils analysis, that type of thing. What we do when we put out the work, we provide a abbreviated scope. Then each firm gives us back a cost. They name the personnel that they would put on it with the resumes, and then a schedule. And from those 3 items, we select. And it's usually based on the lowest cost, but
So there's still
if you're qualified.
a limited bid process within these
Yes.
firms here?
Yes. What the primary purpose of this, a typical project from the conception to construction completion, I did a schedule where it showed 800 days. And this cuts out, it knocks it down to 450 days, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you.
I was just going to offer, Madam Mayor, for Mr. Silva to share this information with the chamber.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will do that.
I was remiss, I apologize. I forgot to announce that this is a public meeting. If there is an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, please complete a speaker slip and give it to the city clerk. When the item is announced by the mayor, come forward to the microphone, address yourself to the council, stating your name and address for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council concerning any other matter within the council's jurisdiction, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda. With that being said, we'd like to move on now to item number 10, discussion and necessary action relating to project proposals received for the CDBG program year 2010-2011. So Ms. Piedra, who's also our acting city manager, so you can draft documents and sign them all at the same time.
Not really, not really. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The item before you is a discussion and necessary action for the proposals that we received for CDBG funding consideration for the fiscal year 2010-11. We do have handouts. We have invited those agencies that submitted proposals to be part of this discussion. So we do have handouts of the summary that has been provided with your council report. If they are interested in following the discussion, those are available in the back of the council chambers. I have prepared 3 slides with this PowerPoint presentation to summarize the funding that we had available, and also to refresh your memories on the discussion that we held before you on October 21st of last year, and presented to you some a new program, and also what we considered at the time as possible projects for consideration. Basically, as included in your report, the funding that we believe we will have available to us for the program for this new fiscal year is $665,626. That's directly from HUD. The number has not been confirmed, but we do anticipate receiving at least this amount. We also receive throughout the year program income. This is from loans that have been paid off under the CDBG, and we anticipate those being at 88,000. Therefore, we have available to us 753,626. We followed, in order to obtain the proposals that we are going to present to you tonight, we followed our required citizen participation plan process. We had an initial RFP process that started on October 30th of 2009 to December 11th of 2009. However, at the request of this council, we did open up the RFP process again a second time for 15 days, which we opened from December 22nd to January 6, 2010. During this 15-day process, we received 2 proposals coming from Catholic Charities. Those were to consider funding for their House of Hope and the Senior Nutrition Program, which are included as part of your summary. We also held 2 public meetings in order to allow the public to express their needs, and also to review with them the application process and to provide any technical assistance. And of course, staff was also available at our offices to discuss any questions they may have as far as project submission. We received a total of 12 proposals. 8 proposals were under the public services, 1 was under the public facilities and infrastructure, and 3 were pertaining to housing. One of the major components of this funding to keep in mind is that we have to demonstrate to HUD that we are meeting 3 of their objectives. And basically, those are to benefit at least 51% low and moderate income persons, to aid in the prevention or elimination of slum or blight, and also to meet any particular urgency that our community may have. At this point, in the step that we are ready to move forward with is to identify what those priorities are for our community and start drafting our annual action plan and prepare it for the 30-day public comment period. I'm going to go over the list. We don't have a particular slide prepared for this, but again, the handout is available for those that are interested in following. Under the public services, as you may see, we received a request for a total of $158,730. And these proposals came from Woman Haven. They are requesting $20,000. Catholic Charities for their House of Hope, $20,000. The Catholic Charities, their Senior Nutrition Program, $15,300. The El Centro Police Athletic League, $20,800. The Imperial Valley Blood Services, a division of the San Diego Blood Bank, $25,000. The Alzheimer's Association, San Diego Imperial Chapter, $10,000. And then we have the IVROP also putting in a request for $5,630. And of course, we have our fair housing program, which is a requirement for $42,000. So this, in summary, totals up the proposals that we have under the category of public services. As pointed out in your report, we do have a cap under this category, and this is a cap that is required of the program, and it's 15%. And we calculated based on the annual allocation and also on the program income that we receive. So we have $71,000 that is available, and that's deleting the $42,000 that we are required to comply with for fair housing.
Okay, Ms. Piedra, let me stop you there if I could. So of the 7 proposals then that are available for our review and funding priority, you have deemed all of those fully eligible under the program guidelines, is that correct?
Yes.
Or is there still some consideration to be given as to eligibility?
What we do is we do an initial eligibility screening. We do point out, as included on the eligibility, that this is based on income. And as you will see on some of these agencies, they do not require income verification. However, in order to participate in the program, they need to provide that. We have indicated and we have notified, for example, the Alzheimer's Association, that this is a process that they have to go through as far as income eligibility, because it is required. And so they have indicated that they're willing to work with us in that regard, but it is a requirement.
While we're still on this page, and maybe it'll be helpful if we kind of cluster our questions as you go along. The question I had as I reviewed the backup materials, Ms. Piedra, is with regard to proposal number 5, which is the Imperial Valley Blood Services, a division of the San Diego Blood Bank. I had a hard time finding the nexus between that particular activity, which is facilitating blood product availability, which is then provided to hospitals, right?
That is correct. Now, one of the issues here, as you will see, is that there is a cap that we have from the program. We cannot fully fund this piece of equipment or this machine for the full amount.
But we still have to have that nexus.
Yes, we
right?
do have to have, we have to have the income eligibility. We have to demonstrate who we're benefiting. And again, as you can see, there is no income verification with this particular agency. We would have to work with the agency if we proceed and set aside any funding, but however, you do have the situation where we can only do 5,000, and overall, they would have to follow a procurement process where they solicit quotes and comply the regulations of the program.
Okay, let me just take a quick peek here. Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Will you be speaking later?
I
We're
can
gonna
answer
have-
the questions, Chad, yes.
Okay, we'll be asking you specifically then to focus on the income eligibility question. Any other questions at this point, or would you like to move on?
But if you're going to have Mr. Hammond come up for this particular item?
Later.
Later.
As part of the overall comments all at one time.
I would suspect if we were to look at this item, it would be very similar to what we did with our rural health clinic. As you know, hospitals have a difficult time actually extracting that information, but as those of us who have served on the board recognize that a large pocket of our users are Medicare, Medi-Cal. Large pocket.
Well, right, but this is the providing of blood products to the hospital, which then in turn either bills your insurance company or Medi-Cal, Medicare,
but-
or becomes charity care. So
Well,
I'm
yeah.
not sure how that
Well,
affects a
there-
person's individual income.
Well, it may not, but it may be, in my mind, it may be a nexus. Now, whether or not $5,000 is going to be sufficient for them, and for them to accept the money, if you will, and still have to follow all of the stringent guidelines. That's what I'm wondering, if they're willing to do that. So when he comes up, those would be some questions that I hope he will be able to
Very
answer
good.
for us.
Thank you for providing those in advance. Anything else? All right, proceed, please.
So this is a summary pertaining to the public services. Then we follow the next section, which pertains to public facilities infrastructure improvements. We are recommending that we set aside $401,626 for sidewalk improvements. This is in connection with the neighborhood enhancement program that we presented to you, where we hope that you would consider doing sidewalk improvements to the focus areas that we identified as part of our neighborhood enhancement program. Then the other three activities pertain to housing, which are related to lead-based paint abatement, setting aside $10,000 for this program. Also, our housing rehab loan program, $200,000, and for the neighborhood enhancement program, $20,000. And that totals under the housing activities, $230,000. So combined, as we characterize other eligible activities, if we total up or we add up those those four activities, you're looking at approximately $631,000 of other eligible activities as far as request is concerned. When you only have available to set aside $489,858 for this category. And then the final one is the program administration aspect of the grant. This is pertaining to staff timing, attending any training, any activities that support the administration of this program. We can use up to $133,000 from the actual allocation and $17,600. However, we are just recommending setting aside $80,000. So it frees up $70,725 for other projects that you want to consider under the other eligible activity category.
Ms.
This-
Piedra,
yes.
with regard to the lead-based paint abatement, that program seems to fluctuate quite a bit in terms of both the amount asked for and amount dispersed. For example, I'm looking at program year 2007, funded amount was 30,000, dispersed amount was 0. 08, 30,000 requested, a little over 23,000 spent. Last year, well, this program year, 20,000 funded, and no funding yet has been
Yes, for this
dispersed.
current year.
Is that a timing issue, or why do we have some years where no money is dispensed and other years
What happens with this particular activity is it is through our housing rehabilitation program, and as you know, it's a loan program. So if the borrower can sustain the cost of the lead base, then it's added into the loan. But if we have a situation where the borrower cannot carry that portion of the work, then we do tap into this lead-based program, and we actually grant the funding to be able to achieve that housing rehab program. And that's why we're recommending only setting aside or having available $10,000, so we can have the opportunity to use this as a grant source. The slide before you here actually summarizes by category what we are looking at as part of the funding available to us, which comes to the $753,626 that's available. In the next slide, we revisit the consideration that was provided, or the projects that were provided to you during your initial council presentation. Under public services, again, we are recommending that you set aside the $42,000. For the other eligible projects, the neighborhood enhancement program, $20,000, housing rehab, $200,000, lead base, $10,000, and for the sidewalk program, the $401,626, and plus the program administration, that basically uses up the full amount available for the 2010-2011 fiscal year.
Thank you for your presentation. I think at this time, what I would like to do is, we have a number of applicants that have requested to speak.
Okay, well, I'll wait.
Okay, so what I'd like is, as I read your name, if you would come forward, we're going to have you just go in order, please. We will start with Ms. Lourdes Ortega, representing IVROP, Mr. Frank Marquez, Women Haven Center for Family Solutions, Robert Mosier, representing Catholic Charities. Martha, did you also want to speak, or both? Okay. And then I believe, Mr. Hammond, you have a proposal, or excuse me, a speaker slip. If you could please state your name, your address, and your agency, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City Council, my name is Lourdes Ortega, and my address is actually 221 Robert Kennedy Street in Calexico, but I'm representing IVROP at 687 State Street here in El Centro. And basically, I'm here because of the IVROP application for the project Learn and Earn. And it's an income tax preparation project. Actually, we provide classes to low to moderate income clients, and basically we are giving them an economic tool to help themselves either prepare their own taxes, and if they pass a test, be able to apply for their own license to have their own business. The other thing is that we help the community all around us by providing the volunteer income tax assistance project, and it gives them training. It gives the clients training, and the taxpayers also a way of saving money in their tax preparation, and it's by income guidelines. So it's a very good program, and it's a win-win situation. It's managed mostly by volunteers, and so we're just here for support.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ortega.
Thank you, Lourdes.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Frank Marquez.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Frank Marquez. Address is 741 Main Street here in El Centro. Agency is the Center for Family Solutions, Women Haven, Inc. And I'm here today to represent our proposal for the CDBG grant for 2010-2011. We run, as you know, Women Haven runs a center against domestic violence, and we would like to also have your support during this grant year to provide services to 44 families that will be part of the pool that come through our shelter services. We would like to work with these families and be able to provide them shelter, educational programs, and case management, and hopefully be able to refer them also to continue with their education to become self-sufficient and become independent in their lives in sustaining their families. We have had funding in the past, and we have worked with these particular projects. They've been very, very helpful and very effective, and we would like to continue providing that service to residents of El Centro that qualify under this program. We serve approximately about 4,000 to 5,000 people a year through our shelter services, and as you know, the Centers Against Domestic Violence have been impacted greatly in the last year by funding sources, and we are in need right now. We have shrunk our staff to half the size that we had before, and we're still providing the same services more strategically, but we are there providing programs. And again, we would like to have your support to continue with this program, serving our communities of El Centro.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a point of clarification for Ms. Piedra. It's my understanding that Women Haven actually services the entire county. No one is turned away if they are seeking services. So Ms. Piedra, is there any kind of a requirement that the funds be earmarked for residents of the city of El Centro?
Yes, they are aware that they can only serve El Centro residents. What happens is we go and do a site visit and also get information pertaining to those particular individuals that are El Centro residents. It's part of our monitoring through the program.
Can I ask a question related to Women Haven on the 09 allocation? And if you look at the amounts that were awarded and look at the dispersed amounts, if I'm reading this correctly, it shows that there's been no disbursements paid out to this organization. And I know that we're halfway through the year. I presume this goes through June 30. But
Yes, that's correct.
But is that a timing issue of the nature of the services, or what would explain the fact that there's been no activity specifically tied to this yet?
We encourage the subrecipients, which in this case, obviously, Women Haven is, to provide on a monthly basis their expenses for the program. And so we strongly encourage them, because at that point, then it becomes a city issue where if we don't expend the funds, then we could potentially be affected by it, because we do have at the end, in May, we do an expenditure rate calculation. And therefore, we encourage all the subrecipients to bill us on a monthly basis, since they're serving clientele, and do that.
Mr. Marquez, are you able to provide some input as to why, for this year, for the first 6-7 months of the year, there's been no activity shown under this?
As far as services?
Right.
Well, the services are there, Mr. Silva. We did lose our Deputy Executive Director for administration earlier in the year, so the new person that took over has been pretty much trying to connect with the grant management and the billing system. And I know that there's some billing coming out, soon to recapture some of those fundings.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. Catholic Charities, we have 2 representatives.
Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Dr. Robert Moser. I'm the Deputy Director for Catholic Charities. Our main office is on 250 West Orange, and our senior nutrition program is located at 1755 West Main Street. The last time I stood before this body, I appealed for the opportunity for our agency to compete for CDBG funds. Your response and the implementation of the city staff to this request exemplifies your abiding sense of fairness and your concern for the poor. For that, Catholic Charities, again, deeply expresses our appreciation. Tonight, however, I come as an applicant, and I will address the needs of seniors while my colleague Martha Ranson will speak on behalf of homeless women and children. I'm not quite sure if I'm speaking in favor or in opposition to a recommendation, because I'm not quite sure if the city staff are recommending funding for public services by applicants such as ours or not, but I'll speak on behalf of our agency in that regard. A daily nutritious hot meal is an essential of healthy living. The home-delivered meal program, operated by Catholic Charities since 1988, is literally a lifeline to over 100 very vulnerable seniors in more than one way. Besides food, daily contact with the elderly who live alone provides an important watchful eye on their well-being and status, especially those who are disabled. In calendar year 2009, we delivered 20,544 meals to residents of El Centro. Currently, we are serving 109 unduplicated seniors. And if I might take this opportunity to kind of piggyback an answer to your question, Mr. Silva, the contract only began November, even though it was supposed to be July because of delays in the HUD processing of the city's application, et cetera. We were only entered into the contract as effective as November 1st. And so we've served 109 people in 2 months. 36% of this group are women living alone. 92% are very low to low income. And this is reflected in the average contribution by a senior for a meal. We always ask for a voluntary contribution, and we get 27 cents from the seniors themselves. Our numbers in home delivered keep on going up each year, in part because our population is aging. Our Congregate Meals program that has several sites in El Centro, the resident population has been coming there for years, are getting older, as represented by the fact that 42% of the seniors we serve in home delivered are over the age of 80. Our meal counts are going up because programs like in-home supportive services and the adult day health care programs are being cut and curtailed by the state budget, and those alternatives that provide meals through caretakers or through day out kinds of programs are being limited, and now those seniors are calling us and asking us to be their lifeline. Unfortunately, because of the limitation of our funding, we now have a waiting list of 16 for seniors in the city of El Centro. That number can increase. So we come before you, as we have every year since the city of El Centro has had this funding, to appeal for a population that's not able to come here tonight and speak on their own behalf because they're homebound. For a population that has, in the prayer that Ms. Sanders pointed out in terms of those who are in need, who have done their service, have served their country, have served their families, have served their community for many years, and now we're asking this city, our agency, the community at large, to help them live as best they can for the remaining years of their life. Thank you.
Dr. Moser, is there a criteria, eligibility criteria to participate in either the House of Hope or the Senior Nutrition Program?
Well, for senior nutrition, you have to be over the age of 60. In terms of the...
It's non-denominational.
Non-denominational. That is not a... Religion is not a factor. Just being over the age of 60. Then the residents of the particular area. So we've always committed and always make sure that everybody who we count as a meal or as an unduplicated count for any funding from the CDBG are residents of El Centro, plus the fact that we do an intake that has their income reported, and we show that on the monthly report form of, as far as the number who are below poverty.
Questions? Mr. Silva?
2 years ago, the city did not fund any of these projects because money was directed for other projects. Other than the obvious and the reduction of services that were faced by you 2 years ago, can you give me more tangibles as to what the direct impact was to the community due to the not receiving these funds?
Our current number of seniors that we serve have 109. Back before those cuts, not only the lack of resources from CDBG, but there was also a significant cut by the state. We were serving 300 per month, 300 on average per month. And so it was a dramatic drop, and now that number is going back up again because we have the resources. What we don't know, and we won't know until sometime after this year when the census comes, how many more seniors there are in the area that aren't being served. And we frankly have had to stop doing outreach. We have stopped working as closely as we have had in the past with medical providers who always want to have some place when somebody's coming out of a hospital, so that as a condition of them coming out of the hospital, that they have somebody who can take care of them and they have some meals, because the numbers are exceeding our capacity. So our ability and our desire and our commitment and our mission to serve as many as we can is being held back. So if the funding was not there, actually we're asking less money this year than we did last year in recognition of the situation that the city and all governments find themselves. But the lack of funds would mean that our waiting list, we would have to have higher and higher. If I might, we have a triage system now that we started as a result of the previous cuts, where now everybody's ranked based on the number of disabilities and number of limitations that they have. And, we're getting higher and higher on that particular list in terms of the number of disabilities you have. So there's people who are falling off and not getting food at all.
Thank you. Right.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us speak tonight. I will be brief since you already heard from my colleague. I am Martha Ransom. I'm the Director of Homeless Women's Services for Catholic Charities, and I've listed my address as the main office on West Orange, 250 West Orange, and the House of Hope is located at 1948 West Orange. The house has been in operation since 1980, serving homeless women and children. All these, and we've never stopped serving the population. And there are a couple of things that are new in our development and the way we're functioning that I thought you would like to hear about. This year, for the very first time, we had an 80-year-old grandmother come to the house with her 15-year-old granddaughter. We've never had a homeless grandmother and granddaughter team before. We are still housing the grandmother. She's been with us over 8 months because she's dealing with a lot of legal issues to try and get her back into housing and access to other services that she's lost for a variety of mistakes she's made in her own life. Unfortunately, the granddaughter has since gone to Betty McNeese she had many outstanding legal issues herself. So we're trying to help that family, patch that family back together. The other interesting change in our demographic has been, for the first time, we have now been in the business of helping families, unattached women, reunite with their children. These women have been had their children taken from them because of their drug and alcohol histories. They're now in treatment with behavioral health services. They're obviously in the system with Child and Family Services and Department of Social Services. They're coming into our program and living with us while they complete those programs, and as they do so, then Child and Family Services is placing their kids with us on weekend visitations until they're able to reunite the family at the House of Hope, which has been a very interesting thing to watch. From that reunification, the families then are able to connect with affordable housing and move on because they are able to get jobs because of their intensive therapy and so forth. We've had 6 families in the last 6 months do that with us. We're really excited about that addition to our services and being able to help a group that hasn't been helped very much in the past in this kind of a housing situation. We really urge you to support the House of Hope once again. We really appreciated and enjoyed our relationship with the city over these years. Your contribution of 15 or 20,000 is a very small amount of our budget, and we will continue to do the service somehow. However, the funding everywhere is in dire straits, as Frank mentioned and as Dr. Moser mentioned. I don't know what we're all going to do when we can't find support for the families that really need it, because we all have the same problem. And I appreciate your problem of trying to figure out how to fund these programs. Thank you very much for considering this, and I wish you well in the deliberation. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. No questions at this time?
Thank you.
Going to have, please, Mr. Daniel Gonzalez, followed by Mr. Frank Espinoza. Are there any other speaker slips? Mr. Espinoza, if you could make your way down here as well, you'll go right after Mr. Gonzalez, please.
Mayor Villegas Walker and City Council members, good evening. Can you hear me? Let me pick this up a little bit. My name is Daniel Gonzalez. I'm a police officer with the City of El Centro, currently assigned as the Executive Director for the El Centro Police Activities League. I'm here in front of you tonight requesting funding from the CDBG block grant to provide the children of the community with 2 computer video learning centers. The learning centers are going to be provided for the underprivileged, low-income youth in our community. Our objective is to offer the youth a viable and constructive alternative to street life, crime, and what have you. We currently have 2 locations in the city of El Centro. If you're not familiar with them, we have our main office, which is located at 1100 North 4th Street, the Ryerson Youth Center. We also have another location located at 1400 North Imperial Avenue. It's a Posada del Sol apartment complex. We currently have outdated computers at the Posada complex, and we're targeting with this proposal over 500 children at both centers. The computers that we have at the Posada Youth Center are operating off a Windows 98 program, which is a very outdated program, and we're unable to update these and put in more modern educational software for the children, so we're very limited to what we can show them. The children at the Posada Youth Center are also seeking some type of help from us. A lot of these children come from single-parent homes, low income, where mom and dad don't have the time to help the children out with their homework or their school projects because they're either working 2 or 3 jobs and they don't have the time to help their children out. So they come over to our center where we have our program directors and volunteers assist them with their projects for school and homework. The same thing happens over at the Ryerson Youth Center. We're unable to provide the services currently at the Ryerson Youth Center because of the outdated programs on our computers. A lot of our computers have crashed, so we have no operating computers for our computer labs at the Ryerson Youth Center. I just want to thank you folks tonight for allowing me to come up and speak to you about our proposal. And I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Probably a joint question for you and Ms. Piedra. I understand that you currently have pending, or the PAL program currently has pending requests for surplus computers, certainly with Rabobank is the one that I'm aware of. I also know that there's a great deal of equipment that's available through the hospital on a surplus basis. So if you were able to get donated computers from another source, how would you reprogram these monies to augment the learning centers?
There's also some video projectors that would allow us to teach the children on a larger scale, instead of having just one person or one program director try and talk to all the children and dedicate 15 minutes to each one of them. He might be able to do it kind of in a classroom setting where we can put something on the screen, explain to all the children at the same time, and actually save some time.
Ms. Piedra, excuse me, how would that request then need to be phrased so that if he is successful, Mr. Gonzalez is successful in getting supplemental equipment or funding from other sources? Is the request broad enough to allow for that?
In the proposal that was submitted, he indicated, or they indicated that they were going to be purchasing computer equipment. If it changes, then from that original request, then what I would suggest is that they consider submitting a proposal for the next funding cycle, because based upon what we have the purchase of computers. If, as an alternative, he would have included in the proposal that they were consider seeking computers or the equipment elsewhere, if it was an and/or type of situation, that we could perhaps consider it. But because the proposal came in as computer purchases, I don't believe we can go back and change it.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you.
Can I ask a related question to that? Have we approached any other either private foundations or Dell or other private businesses to see if there's some donations that can come our way?
Like
for
Mr. Walker
computer.
said, we've spoken with some representatives there at Rabobank
No.
who have tried to or attempted to try and see if they can have
No,
some
I'm talking
computers.
about Apple computers, Microsoft, Dell.
I believe there was one other organization. It was a cell phone organization. Don't remember which one it was. It was last year sometime, but we never received a response from them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Frank Espinoza, please.
Good evening, members. My name is Frank Espinoza, and I'm from the Alzheimer's Association on 584 West Main Street. I've been serving as their regional manager for going on 7 months now, and the association encompasses many different services, one being the respite program, and it's the most demanded service that we have offered here in the community, and we cover all of the Imperial County. However, because of budgets, because of other programs that have been cut throughout the state, we are unable to meet that need, and so this is why we're requesting funds for the CDBG grant. And well, I hope that that we were able to provide to continue to provide that service. And basically, what we do is we work with Catholic Charities in the Senior Companion Program, and these are trained volunteers that go out to the homes and provide companionship and alleviate the families that are experiencing high levels of stress in taking care of a person who suffers from Alzheimer's disease. And it has been a very effective program in the community, because people respond well to the relationship that the senior companion has with the patient, and it just gives them that calm feeling that they can go out of their home and carry on some duties that they're unable to do on a day-to-day basis. So as far as moving on to the issue with income eligibility, currently we don't have an income criterion, because we don't want to discriminate all the families that suffer from Alzheimer's disease. However, we are willing to implement that criterion in order to be considered for this grant. And basically, like Madam Sanders had recently spoken, the majority of the families that come into our office are Medi-Cal, Medicare. However, they don't have certain insurance or certain coverage that would allow them to have 24-hour care. And so therefore, some of these low-income families are faced to balance whether they work or stay at home on a full-time basis. And begin to exhibit signs of stress, and that is why they end up, somehow going into our association and requesting the respite service. So I thank you for the opportunity. Actually, this is my first time at a council meeting, and it's quite different. And actually, it's somewhat intimidating because I'm seeing Mr. Solomon. It's taking me back to IBC. So I thank you for the opportunity. Onions. And so this would actually carry on through the remaining of the fiscal year. So usually, for example, a family can receive from 60 to 80 hours a month, and with that, there's costs involved with training, using our facility to provide the tools and the literature that we constantly get, and printing out, material and ordering material from our national, from our corporate office, and all those costs would go towards the volunteers, the training, the material, the literature, the mileage, and basically it usually costs, I believe, around $320 to $500 a month per family.
So this is targeting general operational
Yes.
costs and not specifically targeting 5 households? So
Well, we determined that if all the families get an equal amount of hours, it would come out to 5 families.
Oh, I see, okay. All right.
So,
I
all right.
just wanted you to know, Frank, that as your former speech teacher, I was grading you here.
Oh,
and I'll
great.
tell you about it later.
All right. Well, I'll pick up my report card later on. But thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Dr. Hammond, and then our last speaker slip is Mr. Ryan Armenta.
Good evening, Mayor Walker and council members. Dr. Hammond from the San Diego Blood Bank and the Imperial Valley Blood Services. The proposal that was submitted was for what we call an apheresis machine. The San Diego Blood Bank, in the numbers we were given by El Centro Regional Medical Center, was that 70% of the blood products that we provided to them was used by Medi-Cal or Medicare patients. We do not have a income requirement. We supply blood to 53 different hospitals over 5 counties. We are a nonprofit, and we're allowed to recuperate the cost of collecting, processing, and testing those blood products. However, Medicare and Medi-Cal set the reimbursement, and in 2007, we were undercompensated $1.7 million for red blood cells. So without our community partners, our corporate partners, the grants that we write to foundations, it's very difficult for us to go out and purchase capital equipment that we need, especially large items. So that's why we're constantly writing grants. We're looking any way we can to help purchase this gear and this equipment. This machine allows us to take the component that we need. Your blood is made of 3, I think you're a regular blood donor, if I'm not mistaken. And your blood is made up of 3 components: platelets, plasma, and red blood cells. And I'm just going to use a particular type for example here. If you're an O positive and we have 10 days supply of O positive on the shelf, and you come in to donate at our donor center, we're going to take whole blood. This machine allows us to take, let's say we need platelets though. This allows us to take the platelets, put the red blood cells and the plasma back into your system along with a saline solution that rehydrates you. It's a little bit safer for you to donate. And that way we don't take the chance of outdating a particular type of blood. Whole blood, the shelf life is 42 days. So it really helps us manage our blood inventory a lot better, so that we don't ever have to worry about outdating, which typically we don't anyway. But it's just a better mechanism for us to collect certain types of blood and so on.
So the funding you're seeking is actually to fill the gap between the Medicaid, Medicare reimbursement?
Well,
the cost of the product? Or?
No, it's actually for the machine, to help purchase the machine, this particular machine, which runs $25,000 bucks, a little over that. So that's what these funds are for us, to help us to purchase that piece of equipment. Right.
Questions?
Question. What happens if, as Ms. Piedra has notified us, there's a $5,000 cap, so where does the other $20,000 if we give you 5?
Through other fundraising efforts.
Well, Ms. Baylor, that means if we were to offer a $5,000 thing, we wouldn't give that money unless the machine was actually purchased?
Okay,
Thank you.
sir. Any closing additional comments from staff?
No, if you have any further questions.
A clarification.
Okay.
If I'm reading this, because I think this didn't match exactly what was on your screen, but I'll just go to our sheet. If I'm reading this correctly, Ms. Piedra, we have $71,043 available for public service?
Yes, if
Is that
you.
really just cutting it down to the exact number?
Yeah, but if I understand this right, is there a recommendation from staff to fund any of those?
That is correct. This slide is, again, it's just a consideration for you to, to consider. And this is based upon our discussion that we had with you back in October. For public services, fair housing is a required activity, and it does come out from this allocation. And so at this time, we didn't offer, or we didn't set aside any funding under public services for any of the other proposals that we received.
All right, so why don't we all turn to that first page, though, the
So-
summary list of project
Can
proposals.
I ask just a clarifying question? So, Marcela, if we were inclined to fund some of these projects, and looking at your recommendation, we would have to pull funds from some of those recommendations to an amount not to exceed $71,000.
That is correct. We would have to look at the other eligible CDBG projects and reduce housing rehab or the neighborhood enhancement program or the sidewalk improvement program. So we would have to reduce those amounts, any of those particular amounts.
Not to exceed $71,000.
That's correct, due to our cap.
Okay, I'm going to start at this end with Mr. Edney.
Well, I think certainly we've heard, many of us have been up here another year. We know that the agencies that have come and asked for funds do it because they do a huge benefit to this community.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I announced Mr. Armenta, and then I didn't allow him to speak. I apologize. Mr. Armento, did you want to augment anything that Officer Gonzalez had to say?
Yes, ma'am. I have clarification on the questions that you had asked.
Okay.
My name is Ryan. I'm the Development Director for PAL. It is my responsibility to look for grants, outside foundations, block grants, et cetera. In touching upon the computers you mentioned from Rabobank, I've recently spoke with Randy Taylor over there. The way it's expressed to me is the facilities are revamping the way that they distribute the items. They're in process of developing the format. So therefore, that could put them on hold if we would even receive them, possibly June, late June, if at all. We're not sure. While we're always grateful for any donations we receive, based on my experience there, I kind of look back, our last computers that we're working with were donated from a bank. They're already outdated by computer standards lots of times. Not greatly, but they are not the most modern. I do all the work on the computers at the Posada Youth Center. I have 4 computers that I'm constantly maintaining, trying to keep them up and running. We can have 30 kids in there in a day all fighting over for the computers. The purpose of the grant is if we don't get computers, we can go out and purchase modern equipment that will last us much longer. You know, you buy a computer nowadays, for our purposes, can last us a good 3, 4, 5, possibly years on it. And we won't, I don't know what, we were looking at quantities being received, but when you have 30, 35 kids a day coming in to do their homework and do research, 10 computers isn't enough. So there's never enough for it. If we get a grant and we get a donation of 100 computers, we'll be able to put them all to use. We have enough kids in this community who need our services. So there'll never be a lack of computers sitting around not being used, go to waste. There's also a lot more educational software that this grant could help us by buying the computers. We can use other monies to get those software, educational things. We work closely with the schools as the department has their school resource officers. We have community service officers who give us feedback on what we need to have and provide the kids. So we all work together. I believe, you had another question that was stated to him?
My comment was, well, my question was if we had made an effort in the past to
Yes, thank you. I remember
outreach technology companies and
Yes.
computer companies.
I've done research with Dell, Microsoft, majority of your big name computer companies. The trend has turned to go away from youth centers, boys and girls clubs, police athletic leagues. Their predominant goal, from what I'm seeing, is targeting schools. The educational, getting the schools the computers they need right there, which is a greater demand than a lot of the youth centers. They're not strictly denying us, however, we're not their priority. So by the time, as with all funding, it's so much to go down the ladder, it doesn't make it to us. So we have to force to seek outside things. We have solicited other foundations for grant proposals in which we did not receive for different reasons. All the different foundations have their different priorities. Most of the technology-based ones are looking at schools because their numbers are higher. They target 700 kids in one school, where ours did not. So therefore, that's why we're forced to go into finding funding in order to go out and purchase our own.
Mr. Armenta, I'd also direct you to our public library that operates a very successful homework center and other ancillary services for students that may be able to be used by you as well.
Yes, ma'am. On that note, though, our youth centers are right down in the areas where our kids are needed and can walk lots of times.
I'm not suggesting that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was more of a question.
No, that your
My
children
apologies.
be going to the library. What I'm saying is that the library has successful programs that may migrate and assist you in your
Oh, okay.
locations.
I understand, sorry.
And I think one of the things that I would like to throw out is about maybe 2 months ago, Mrs. Sanders, Mrs. Walker, and myself appeared at Sweet Home Baptist Church, and they received, what, $17,000? $17,000 for computers from AT&T, and I know that AT&T likes to have a presence in the areas that they have linkage. And I know the top person to talk to AT&T happens to be the mayor of El Centro. She was able to get that done. But what I'm saying is that I would probably give AT&T a call. They are really looking to do some things in the Imperial Valley, and that would certainly be a nice hookup for you.
Thank you, sir, for that information.
Okay. Mr. Edney, I apologize.
No, understood.
Okay.
No, I was just going to say, I think we've been up here a number of years. We live in the community. I've worked with many of these agencies. I see the good works they do. I can't imagine in this economic situation that how we could not prioritize funding for these agencies. I think while the sidewalk improvement program is a tremendous benefit long-term to the community, we have people in this community that we serve that need the assistance that these programs provide. We know that the city is going to be going through a very difficult financial situation over the next couple of years based on a decrease in revenue and what the state has come and grabbed from us. And it's in these economic times that of course, that the nonprofit agencies come up and are most important. It's not that they're not important all the time, but I think this is when the impact is the greatest. I would throw out that there could be an opportunity or at least a recommendation, and certainly we'll listen to my colleagues, but we could fund the top 3 categories on the public service. We could fund the IVROP program, which is number 7, and we could fund number 4 to about half of their request, $10,013, which would be covering 5 different agencies requesting funds within the $71,000 range. The reason I even suggest those, but as we heard from the reports, is that really hits the entire segment of our population. It hits children, it hits the senior citizen population, it provides an opportunity for low-income people to get some skills, and of course, I know the work that PAL does. I think we all do. I think it's really important the work they're doing over at Posada del Sol. And I think those kids really appreciate it. I think your point as well, I think we can always work with the library, but the people that typically live in that area, they're going to find it a hard time getting down to.
And that wasn't my
No, but I'm just saying, the connection, it's right there, and that's always been a difficult spot. We're aware that in the past, it's had very high crime rates, not so much anymore, but I think it's part because we put the police substation there, we put PAL over there, and we're using it more effective to our tools. So I think that is just an offering of where we could do the most good with what is quite honestly a very limited amount of money.
Proposal again, Mr. Edney, to summarize, was to fully fund requests 1, 2, 3, and 7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And
And that would leave 10,013 to fund item 4. And what that would allow is it goes to your point that you raised, and I think they would. If you can provide some computers, this is help buying computers and also maybe helping buy the software that will assist those computers. And I think my math is correct.
okay, thank you. Mr. Silva?
I think that's a wonderful recommendation.
Okay.
I tend to concur. I think that there, as far as the PAL and the Computer Learning Center, I think that there's other opportunities via private foundations, businesses, our local social clubs like the Rotary and Kiwanis and other places that perhaps if you pull it from different sources that you'll be able to achieve your goal. And if we can set aside some funding to help towards that, I think it'll work. So I like that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Mr. Solomon?
Just give me a minute.
Thank you. Mrs. Sanders?
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'm not opposed to the particular recommendation on the table, but I would like to see us try to consider, if possible, something in the $5,000 range for this piece of equipment for the blood. I really believe that will be an asset. Unless you're in need of blood, maybe you don't have a particular appreciation for in the value. But what struck me was the fact that, if I'm understanding correctly, that you could actually draw blood and separate the 3 components and then have a longer shelf life for each one of those components, recognizing that whole blood has a shelf life of a little over a month. Did I understand that? May he come back, Madam Mayor, please? May he come back and just say yes or no, or can I just get him to say yes or no from the, would you say yes or no from the audience for me?
Well, what it allows us to do, it doesn't make any of those components last longer. It just lets us choose the components that we're most in need of.
Okay.
Whereas when you take whole blood in one of our centers over here, it then has to be processed, and we split those 3 out, so we get the 3 components.
Mhm.
But the problem is that we may not need, maybe we've got a surplus of a particular type of red blood cells. So if that person comes in, we may not need their red blood cells right then. We may have a supply that's going to last us 7 to 10 days. It allows us to take the plasma or the platelets, which we might need, and put the rest back into the person. So it allows us to pick those components
Okay.
to better manage the inventory.
All right, then having said that, thank you, Madam Mayor, for allowing the gentleman to speak from there, and I know that it's difficult to capture that, for Mrs. Caldwell to capture that over the mic. However, I still think that that's interesting, and I know that we're limited with funds, but at the same time, I think that would provide a valuable service. What I don't know is if there's a possibility for some other funding stream to assist, and I was thinking if you service several hospitals, some of those hospitals, some of those agencies might be able to provide some money to actually purchase this piece of equipment over and above the 5,000, if in fact that would be something that this council would consider doing. Thank you.
Do you have anything?
Yes,
Mr.
let me.
Solomon?
When I was working in San Diego for a company called GenPro that basically makes equipment for aging blood. In other words, they would be able to distract the blood from you and turn it around and be able to give you a reading on it in 3 days instead of the 7 or longer. And they were the first one to come out with something like that. And for me, it has been very interesting how they were able to separate the blood and do all of the other things with the inventions of today. So I would consider that that would be something that I would be interested in us continuing to do. At least I would go along with Ms. Sanders on the $5,000 for that. Alzheimer's, I would like to know if, for some reason or another, they have here no income eligibility. And if that is something that could be worked out, I don't see why we're not trying to do that. We took a few days, a couple of weeks ago, and decided that we wanted to go out to bid again to allow other people to have an opportunity to come in and receive some of the assistance. I was opposed to that, and I lost out. But I believe that, and it's not against Catholic Charity, they do an outstanding job. They were one of the ones that wanted to come in. It's just that it's not our job, or should not be our job, to remind people that it's theirs. And even though they were allowed to come in, we still did not say, next year it's your responsibility to make sure that you stay on top of this so that we don't have to be the ones calling you to remind you of that. So I am glad that they're in, because I know they do a great job. I know they do a great job. But since they are in, now we're making the decision that we're going to leave out some that might have been there before they were allowed to come in. So I would rather just take all of them, divide the money up, however we want to do that, but I don't think nobody should be left out. The only thing that questions me about the Alzheimer's was that Frank said that they work all over the Imperial Valley, and Marcella, Mrs. Piedra, said that our money is for El Centro. So we could not fund a program that goes all over the Imperial Valley.
That is correct. The funding that is spent under this program has to be for the benefit of El Centro residents. And this is why also and all the proposals are very good proposals, and it is a difficult situation when you have to prioritize what needs you would like to address with this funding. However, with the situation with the blood bank, is keep in mind that this is a machine that's going to be for the benefit of the county, and due to the fact that this service that they provide is available countywide, and I don't know how we can track the income eligibility and be able to identify that in the end, the blood that's being provided is actually for an El Centro resident. And so that's the issue that we struggle with. In addition, obviously, to the cap that we have of $5,000, in essence, the agency would have to basically have the funding and purchase it, and then provide us with evidence that they have in fact purchased the equipment. However, should they not be able to provide the gap that they have to purchase the equipment, then you would not be able to spend those $5,000. So just as a clarification for this particular proposal.
Thank you for that information, and that puts a different light on the opportunities that I really see. And it's an unfortunate set of circumstances that puts the particular proponent sideways, if you will, with what our requirements are. So having said that, I will remove my support for that, not because I don't think it's valuable and needed, but because the criteria that's necessary, it cannot meet it.
And
Thank you.
Shane, yeah. Thank you for that information. That clears it up.
When this comes before us every year, the things that I focus on are four basic criteria. The first thing, of course, is meeting people's basic needs of food and shelter. The second criteria for me is where do we get the biggest bang for the buck, and that's where I look at the number of people served for the dollar amount requested. I think Mr. Silva asked some very pertinent questions with regard to that. The other criteria I look at is if perhaps there are other more appropriate or accessible funding sources, either through grants or other community groups. And the fourth thing I always look to is how diligent could we be in making a commitment to assist with other funding sources. So that being said, and that's why I asked Mr. Edney to repeat his recommendation, because in preparing for the meeting, I had written down fully fund 1, 2, 3, 7, and the remainder to number 4, which I believe is your recommendation. I would like to see the Imperial Valley Blood Services approach our foundation at El Centro Regional Medical Center. I think that that's a very viable partnership. I believe that the El Centro Police Activities League, there are a number of opportunities with regard to donated equipment, computers, what have you, that would fill that funding gap. With regard to the Alzheimer's Association, I believe there are at least 4, if not 5, service clubs represented here at council, and certainly have a commitment to get you in front of those groups to see if we could possibly augment the funding. But I will return to Mr. Edney, as I believe that there is support for a motion.
The motion is to fund, thank you, Madam Mayor, items 1, 2, and 3 on the public service request, 1, 2, 3, and 7, with the balance of available funding of $10,013 to funding request number 4. And then I'll just add to my amendment, will allow staff the flexibility to make the modifications in the programs, although I'll just hint, is not part of my motion. I think Mrs. Walker and Mr. Silva brought up the concern about the lead-based payment, which I think you could take $5,000 out of that. But we'll leave it up to staff to determine that.
Just as a clarification pertaining to the proposal submitted by PAL, you are setting aside $10,003 with the understanding that it is for purchase of computer equipment. However, you are asking that they pursue other sources to fulfill the request?
No, to augment the request, because I'm sure that they could go out and readily purchase $10,000 worth of computer equipment and still be in need of additional
Computers.
computers.
Okay, because I just wanted to clarify, because the request is for computer purchases.
Right.
So that would be, the 10,000 would be spent on this, and
Exactly.
it's up to them to
Correct.
pursue
Right.
others. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
We do have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Silva. Please ballot.
And the motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. Espinoza, if you could please leave your contact information with our acting city manager. She probably already has that. And we will make good on a commitment to get you in front of our service clubs for funding.
Madam Mayor, I would like to, as we leave this for this year, consider some of the issues that come forward. We've given a great deal of discussion about those who are less fortunate. As we have our various programs over at the Community Center for young people who are coming in, and we do charge them $1, I'd like to have Mrs. Reister consider whether or not she would like to send in a proposal for next year to help offset those funds, maybe through something similar to a scholarship, so that the individuals who have limited resources and inability to pay for the fee, that they might have some funding stream available for them.
I think that's also an excellent proposal that we could get in front of service clubs that could readily buy into being able to sponsor children to participate in an after-school activity, and I'd certainly welcome that opportunity.
Either
Great
that,
idea.
either that, or we could do it through some kind of a scholarship.
Okay, staff, we very much appreciate your hard work. We know that this is a very time-consuming process, a lot of moving parts. Excellent job, thank you. We are at this time going to move on to item number 11, which is discussion necessary action regarding El Centro Parks and Recreation Department revised facility request form.
Honorable Mayor and Council, the item before you is the I can talk tonight. The proposed revised facility request form, fees, and regulations. They have been in place for over a decade, so it was definitely time to revisit these. And we looked at our neighboring cities, Yuma, some other cities that are about our income level and population, and came up with our new revised fees. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Mr. Edney?
Minister, thank you very much. I certainly concur with the changes in the form. I want to ask you about the fees. In our backup material, you provide a sample of the previous form, but you don't provide us a sample of what the previous fees were,
It wasn't included?
or I can't find it. So could you give me an idea of how much we're raising the fees?
I thought this one was too. It's not very clear, but.
Or maybe that's why I can't read
Yeah.
it.
Yes, it's the one that says the current form.
Right.
This one.
Well, I'm glad, I see, I was glad you changed the form, because I'm getting old, I can't see the form. Okay, let me ask you this, and I'm certainly encouraged by the fact that you need high deposits. But let me get this, you want to use the adult center, who is being paid $100 to set it up? Is that for staff work to set it up? I'm looking at your new exhibit.
Yes.
That's staff to set up what?
If they have tables, chairs, just any needs that they might have, whatever the setup,
Okay,
if they choose to have setup.
Okay, so if, this is what I'm struggling with. So if somebody wants to use a conference room or a classroom where there's already tables in it, we're
Then
still
they're-
charging them a
no,
hundred fee?
No.
This is if they need something out that's not
Additional,
into the
yes.
room? Okay.
Yes.
And that's clear in the form? Okay. You have down here, which wasn't, when has the youth center ever been available for, isn't it every hour of open day we have it used?
Typically, we haven't, because of staff costs and keeping costs down, we don't open on Sundays, so it would be available on Sundays. We've had some adult leagues actually do like volleyball tournaments and things like that on off days.
Okay. Well, I think I see the need for this. I'm very concerned when, in an economic environment like this, that a city is raising fees on anything. I think we've postponed other fees, but I don't see the fees change schedule that drastic. I'm also always concerned about charging fees to the taxpayers who actually paid for every single one of these to be built. And if we have to, there's a philosophical thing about charging people for something that they paid for. But there is the reality of cleanup and the maintenance cost, and I guess this is just unfortunately the way things have to be. But it is a little disappointing.
So you support it?
Well, reluctantly, I guess I don't have a choice.
Are there additional questions? I do have one question. Mr. Silva, did you have a question?
Christie, on the point by Mr. Edney, I wasn't quite sure about this. So this menu of fees that we have, not all will apply, but who will determine which applies? Who will determine if there is a setup fee that needs to be paid, or?
Either the staff assistant or the office assistant manages all of the facility requests. And
But
so-
based on what the
based on
applicant
what they're
shares
asking,
with them.
exactly, based on what they're asking for.
Just to follow up on that,
Yes.
would it, I think our concern is maybe mutual. Could you say setup fee up to $100?
Sure.
Would that give your staff the flexibility to say if
Absolutely.
a guy needs one table and 4 chairs in a conference room, maybe as a staff you say, hey, that's $20
Sure.
or something? I don't know, I just offer
Yeah.
that as a possibility.
Madam Mayor, if I may chime in on the two conversations going on. Setup fee, does this mean after hours or during regular working hours? So are we
Well,
talking
it would
about
de-
staff?
If it's during working hours, we probably, I mean, since we're already there, and it wouldn't
It's going to be absorbed.
It's mainly because we are short on things. So if there's a function at the OPOP, oftentimes it requires us to bring any table, if they need, if they're having a wedding or they're having something where they need us to bring additional tables or chairs to that facility, it's the transport and moving things around and getting staff to, take time out of other things to go ahead and do that to set up for the event.
Well, and depending on the time, I'm imagining that there could be the incurring of overtime costs and mileage and different things.
Yes.
My recommendation is, I think that, you know, staff here might know what we're talking about and the fact that some of these fees may vary. They will be dictated by whatever service we're providing. But you know, when people leave and institutional memories leave, many times that becomes unclear. So perhaps we can put a footnote within this that says, you know, it kind of clarifies some of the points that were made, so that it's clear to anybody else 5 years from now or the next time we visit this, which might be 20 years from now.
But if we just said up to, then
Right.
is there contacting the staff and explaining their needs? They have the form, so they're showing them this is the maximum charges, and they can listen to what they're saying. To me, it gives the staff the flexibility to look at the situation and all the points that have been raised, whether it's after hours, do they have to take staff time away from something else they're doing to get something over there? And then the manager or the rec director is determining, okay, you know, that's a little thing.
Well, but my point is, let's just use any of these rooms, and you have tables and chairs that are put away in a different room, and we're going to charge them, you know, $50 for setup, for the time of someone to go pick up those chairs, bring them in and set them up. Would someone have the option to say, no, we'll do that ourselves? We'll go get the chairs, we'll set them up ourselves, we'll put them
Yes.
back ourselves?
Well, and probably not transporting our
No, in the chairs.
tables and chairs,
yeah.
but if it's already there, yes, then they can, if they would like to set them up themselves. But this is just a charge if they request setup or
Okay.
additional furniture that needs to be moved or transported. That isn't, like Mr. Edney said, a conference room that already has a table and chairs set up.
So this could actually say Exhibit A fee schedule as requested or for services requested. or something.
I just
But
think,
just
to me, it needs a little
clarify.
clarity so that,
Sure.
you know, with time, people still can refer back and know what we meant.
I had two questions. One is on a number of these items, non-residents and nonprofits are charged two different fees. Other times, we charge them the same fee in the deposit section. Is there a reason for that?
I think because we increased the deposit to a pretty
Hefty
high
amount.
amount, I think we felt, and the Community Services Commission felt that it was it was standard
Okay.
to just go ahead and charge that for everybody. And basically, we just take the check and hold it, and after their event, if there are no damages, we just hand it right back.
Page 2 of the facilities request form, there's a bullet list items of things to do and not to do list. I note that it states that no weddings, quinceañeras, or similar events are allowed at the community center. Why is there a prohibition?
I think because we've had so many problems in the past hosting those events at that facility, and I think we're trying to keep those at, like the old post office pavilion and places that are more designated for those types of activities.
Could we then soften that a little bit to say are not allowed at the community center, but may be hosted at the old post office?
Yes.
Okay, just to soften that a little
Yes.
bit would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Madam Walker, could I go back to the point that you made? Because it was answered in a point that doesn't show up. You asked a point about non-resident and resident
Right, right
deposits,
here.
and I think she said that the commission decided just to make them the same.
Well, for the
For the
really high-end
deposit,
ones.
yeah, for the.
Because if you look at security deposit for community center, they're the same
Okay,
if
and-
you're a resident or non-resident.
And I think my point, because you brought it up, was we're not being very consistent here. Either raise up the resident deposits, because all it is holding the check to make sure no damage is done, the same, or reduce those and make it so it's all the same. Because on a couple of the facilities, they're the same, and then on a couple of the facilities, they're not. And I don't think you can put a nexus there.
So you think the $50 difference for the security deposit should be the same regardless?
Well, I mean, I think then you just have a consistent policy.
Okay, so is your recommendation then to drop the security deposits to $750 for community center and OPOP, or to raise to $850 a security deposit for non-residents?
Under the OPOP, mine says the same thing.
That's my point. So which one do you want to change? Do you
No, no,
want
no,
to
but-
lower the amount required for non-residents?
Mine says 800 all the way down the
Yeah,
list.
no, I think he's saying for the ones that have different deposits, should we
Make them
keep
all-
them the same?
So,
consistent?
okay, under the
You wanna make
OPOP,
everything consistent?
yeah, because, yeah, okay, look, under the community center, they're consistent. It's
Right.
800 across the board. Under the OPOP, 800 across the board.
Right.
Adult center, now you start getting into differences.
Exactly.
Right.
So raise up all the deposits to be consistent on
So
all
you
of
want
them.
everybody to be the same?
Yeah, because
Fine. Okay,
I
that's
think we're
fine.
not charging
That's
them
fine.
them unless they damage
Okay.
it.
That's fine. I'm cool with that.
Want to make it easier? You can
So
actually
do you want me
take
to go
out
with the non-resident number for those or the resident number for
the
those?
non-resident.
Okay.
Bring it all up to the higher
But then,
number.
you see how you could cut out half this stuff?
Yeah.
You won't have all that extra,
So
I mean,
it's one-stop shopping. Whatever the security deposit is, it applies for everybody the same across the board. Makes it easy. Yes, sir.
Chris, can you tell me again what you felt the issue is with weddings or quinceañeras and prohibiting that from in the community center?
Yes, we were having trouble with, if there was alcohol and things like that, which we do permit if they take the appropriate guidelines and get the permits and all of those things. So we were having trouble with the, just the damage. There was it wasn't the appropriate facility to host those types of events. We were having a lot of, they were being trashed, I guess is the best way to say it. So they were just, and we just had the floors redone and things like that. And that's another reason why we increased the deposits on a lot of the facilities because of that reason. And the deposits were so low that people felt like, well, we're just going to go in and have a good old time, and we don't care if you keep our $150 because we had a good time. So we were trying to.
Do you think increasing that to a significant amount may alleviate that or discourage people? Because similar events means a quinceañera is really a birthday party with music. It is.
how many quinceañeras have you been to?
It's a birthday party.
It's not. It's
It may be a little extravagant.
Yeah.
But if you nail it down, it's a birthday party, someone celebrating their 15th birthday. And so when you say similar events, I don't know what that means.
It's quite extensive.
Oh, it's as much as a wedding, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So what would you anticipate similar events be? If you
Parties,
look at
in general, birthday, yes.
other birthday parties?
Super Bowl, forget it, watch the Super Bowl there.
You could solve that problem if you just said no alcohol for weddings or quinceañeras. Nobody'd ever use it. You wouldn't have to exclude it.
Well, maybe that's the compromise. If you want to use the community center, then you're not allowed to have alcohol there.
Well, yeah, we're not going to have any weddings.
Well, then you
go.
haven't excluded it. You just said nobody's going to use it.
I wanted to see if we had additional comments.
Yes, I have some comments. First of all, let me start off by saying that I believe that the Park and Recreation Department has done, under your leadership, a great job.
Thank you.
I think for too many years, that department has taken a back seat. And that's why when you go by Buckland Park, the grass was dying, the fishes were dying, so it's good to see things coming back together again. My questions are about 5. In your report, you did not indicate how much money you thought you might be able to bring in. And the reason why I thought that was important to me was because I have the belief that money like that that's brought in should not go to the general fund. I believe that it should go to the department so that they can continue to add, modify, do the kind of things that they need to do to improve that department. So could you just answer those 2 for me? The reason why there was no indication of how much money you anticipate, and 2, the funding. I know the funding goes to the general fund right now.
I can tell you that these fees brought in, last fiscal year, for the full year, they brought in about $14,000. And I think with these new fees, we'd anticipate that it would bring in about $28,000, depending on usage. But that's probably a pretty good estimate. And I am working with the finance director with a lot of our other fee-based programs, to put those monies into a separate account so that, basically, so it looks like we are self-funding these programs, so that, that we're hosting programs that are paying for themselves. So I can talk with her and see if it's possible that these monies go into a similar account to give back to the facilities and other programs.
Well, it's something that the council would have to decide.
Well, perhaps we could ask the acting city manager to follow up with the city manager and finance director as to what accounting mechanism we could use on the general ledger to create this balance between what's coming in and what's being paid out, and the segregation of that funding for purposes of Parks and Recreation.
And just a couple of quick ones real fast. One of them is the $800 deposit, and I have a little bit of a problem with that. And I just heard you say it again, and that is someone comes in, they want to use the facility, they give you an $800 check. Once the facility is turned out okay, then they give them back the $800. Well, what happens if someone comes in, they know they only got $200 in that account? They give you the check for $800, knowing that there is no way possible they have it. Something happens at the facility, then we have to come back, go to court, and try to resolve that issue to get our money. Now, if you have houses, and I'm sure John will be able to tell you this because I've had some property, that nowadays if you have something, the judge let the people stay in there for 3 or 4 more months. At the same time that's racking up, you're having to pay the bill, and it doesn't seem like you ever get your money back. So I'm asking, what mechanism do we have other than going to court, because that doesn't seem to be the remedy for getting our money if something was to go wrong and they don't have the necessary funds available?
Well, I think the best way that we try to ensure so that doesn't happen is that we make them provide a monitor for the facility, especially if it's after hours. We don't just give our keys or unlock the door and let them in and just have the place. So I think that really helps eliminate some of those problems as far as the damage and, if things get out of hand, that person, if they're not comfortable trying to handle the situation, can call the police at that point. But at least there's somebody there on site, that make sure that the restrooms are stocked, that that the party has the things that they need, that the electricity is working, whatever it might be, to ensure that their event goes successfully, as well as they're holding up their end of the bargain as far as keeping the facility in working order. So
I think I understood the question a little differently. Why don't we just deposit the check, make sure it clears, and then refund the money at some time after the event?
we could do that as well.
Isn't that your point?
That would be.
Yeah.
I think that's the recommendation from
Okay.
Mr. Solomon, is that we go ahead and deposit it, so then we know that the funds are actually there.
My last one has to do with the kids. And I really do have a problem with this one. And the problem is, you're standing at a door. You got some kids walking up to the door. The one kid has $1, the other kids, folks, don't have the $1. And so you're saying, well, you can't come in because, it's only for the kids that are paying for this little meal that we're giving them after school. And the effect that has on a kid is tremendous. And if a family has 5 or 6 kids, we're talking about some pretty good money if we're talking about a month of going to that activity. Now, I know that you are a heavyweight, and I know that you'll come up with something, but let me throw out something just to get this conversation moving. My thought would be, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that if we have kids that cannot afford to pay to come in, is there some kind of a way where we could maybe see if their parents would come down to the community center and give us some time? Maybe on the nights where we have these activities and we need the chairs done or taken down after everybody's gone, and clean the place up. Is there a way that we could have these
Yes,
kids?
absolutely. And we
parents to do
currently
that?
do have families that do that.
Oh, you
that volunteer. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we don't turn anyone away if they can't, bring their dollar, or, if they can't, we don't turn anyone away. If they can pay, it kind of helps us be able to provide a meal for these kids after school. And obviously, you know, we've partnered with the library. We're lucky we have a branch there. So, I mean, they can come in and do their homework. There's somebody there. That's, you know, no charge for any of that. And we do work with the food bank. They donate a lot of food for us to provide the after-school meal. And so, you know, if the kids have it, great. If they don't,
Okay.
we're not necessarily enforcing it.
Well, the reason why I asked that is because, you know, the city is, in some ways, it's getting a little tight. I know with the police department, we have the guy that rides the downtown that's checking the cars. They have him now in the community, ticketing people in the community for checks. It's almost like, okay, we're running out of money or it's going to be tight, and now we got to go out and get the people that are giving us money. We got to stick it to them again. You know, we got to get money any way that we possibly can. We're charging kids $1. We got this motorcycle guy out in the community writing up tickets. I mean, you know, sometimes enough is enough. You know, we have to look out for the residents. At the same time, we have to look out for ourselves. But I don't know if we have to go to that extent. That's all.
I was encouraged to hear that you're not turning
Absolutely not.
anyone away and that you're giving people the opportunity to do an in-kind activity. Mr. Silva?
I want to go back to the quinceañeras.
Now, I'm sorry I brought it up.
Because I think that if there's a problem.
Do you want me to change the verbiage and just say
I
party?
think, honestly, I do think that it's culturally insensitive to use
Absolutely.
Okay.
quinceañeras there. I think we need to massage that language.
Absolutely.
Okay. So do we want to say?
Well, if there's a problem with certain types of events, I think that should be spelled out there.
Okay, point well taken. All right, I think then that what we've heard are two modifications. One is to raise all of the deposits to the upper limit, and then you would, of course, modify your form to reflect that, and then to revise the verbiage on that second to the last bullet point to make it clear as to what activities will be restricted, but to offer them the option of the old post office as an alternative. So with that, if there's no additional questions of council, I'd ask for approval of resolution number,
I just have a question, Madam Mayor, if I may.
yes, ma'am.
And that was, in looking at your fees, I'm going to make some assumptions, Mrs. Reister, that they were based upon recovery of what you thought would be some certain amount of expenses or expenditures.
Yes.
Okay. Now, as you know, last year we had a host of folks coming in wanting to utilize the softball field that were not girls, and all of the other facilities. This is a blanket that would cover all of these different venues that we have available. And the Community Service Commission has made sure that all of those folks are well aware of these adjustments?
Well, the youth leagues don't pay a fee, so this wouldn't.
No, I'm talking about it was, at that time, I thought it was the adult league that wanted to come over and play there at the girls softball field.
Yes, I think everyone is.
Whoever it is,
Yes.
as long as it's not a youth-oriented.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so resolution number 10-19, resolution of City Council, City of El Centro approving Parks and Recreation Department revised facility request form, regulations, and fee schedule.
What number was it? 11?
19. Have a motion?
I so move with a modification on the next to the last bullet.
Right, and the deposit,
No
yes.
deposit. Okay.
Okay,
I move.
Motion from Silva, second by Solomon. Ballot? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane, my fingers,
We can
Are you ready?
reballot, please.
Thank you.
The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you. We note we have a follow-up item then with the city manager. Okay. Very good. The next two are informational items. At this time, are there any public comments? No public comments. Mayor, council member reports. Mr. Edney?
No.
Did you want to talk about the SCAG General Assembly?
Excuse me?
SCAG General Assembly?
Is it coming up?
You trying to get rid of me already?
No, I thought we already received the notification as the kind of a save the date thing.
In July or
May.
June?
May.
You know, I don't know, but that does bring up a quick point. The February 18th, there is a workshop here on SB 375. I know Ms.
That's right.
Sanders is going to be in attendance. I'm guessing.
Yes. No, you're correct.
And as many council members that can show up for at least part of the time,
I'll probably be there for a while.
it would be a good opportunity.
I have no reports.
Mr. Silva, did you want, we were going to just give the.
Oh, I'm sorry,
council-
yes.
Go, you may lead, and then I will pick up for you.
I'll let you,
Okay,
when it
thank
gets
you.
to you, Mrs. Sanders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Solomon.
Yes, just have two things. I went to League of California Cities Employer Relations Board, and I happened to be on. And there were two items that they talked about that I thought would be of interest to our city. The first one was the city of Dana Point contacted the League of Cities about the results of an IRS audit of the city's Park and Recreation Department. The audit concluded that the city had misclassified certain department part-time instructors as independent contractors instead of as employees. Dana Point should have subsequently withheld various payroll taxes from the instructors' pay, which had not been done. The IRS fined the city and requested that it classified part-time instructors as employees going forward. The city intends to appeal the IRS audit determination to the United States Tax Court. And basically what they were saying is that people who did, let's say, for example, aerobics, they worked 3 or 4 days out of the week, the IRS was classifying them as full-time employees. And what is happening at the league, they were saying that the IRS is targeting small cities to go after them to charge them with this fee. They had done it to a couple of other small cities, and they were at Dana Point. And so I just thought it would be something that we could perhaps keep an eye on and have our city attorney take a, maybe look at it. The other thing that I thought was really me was the fact that the league talked about where most of the money is going for our budgets, which we already knew, and that was pensions, benefits, and salary. What they told us was between 70 and 80% of a budget goes to pensions, benefits, and salaries. And one of the things that they were looking at the possibility of doing or suggesting to cities was that as we hire new employees for the areas where pension is just going out, through the roof, that we set a limit on that, that instead of being 80% or 100%, that we look at maybe 70% for new employees that are coming in. If that would be a way to lower our costs in these areas. And so I just thought I would bring that back and present it as something that maybe we can look at it sometime or discuss at a later date, or perhaps try to get a little more information. Thank you.
It would be a two-tier system for new employees versus existing. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to touch upon several areas. I will allow you as the mayor of this city to mention the league and that we're going to be hosting that here. However, I would like to talk about a little bit about ICTC. We did have our first meeting. Mr. Kelly and I will be serving on, and Mr. Smith from Calipat will be serving on a bylaws committee looking at reframing the bylaws. We will use the template from IVAG to try and modify that to make sure it fits. We'll also be looking at ways to make a determination as to how we should structure the LTA and merge that and or consider having it stand alone from the ICTC. LTA, as you recall, is the Local Transportation Authority. The second item I want to talk about is report out on a meeting that Mr. Silva and I had along with certain individuals of the community as well as staff. And the renaming or the consideration for renaming 8th Street south of Ross Avenue, Martin Luther King. There was a great deal of discussion. Mr. Silva was able to take that back to the chamber and talk to the business sector. A great deal of discussion took place. There was a concern about the funding stream and where the funds would come from in order to do that. Staff provided information as related to a cost that might be associated with switching out the signs that are on the streets and perhaps including the labor. To go 8th Street now, 8th Street South, the cost was approximately $25,000. We're not scheduled to have another meeting with the community. We're coming back tonight to ask if you would like to have the staff send out notices to all persons who might be affected on that 8th Street South so that they could come to a meeting, second meeting in February, those who may wish to come, voice their concerns, and then Mr. Silva and I will be ready to make a recommendation on our first meeting in March.
Well, I just want to correct something. We haven't, the chamber has not yet discussed this as a chamber
okay.
board. That's scheduled for the, next week, I believe. We have a chamber meeting, so that'll take.
Typically the third Monday, so I would think it's probably closer to
This-
the 19th.
Right, correct. So that discussion hasn't taken place yet. I think the message that at least I got from the proponents is that they're pretty firm that their option is naming South 8th Street, south of Ross, all the way to the city limits. And because we did discuss other alternatives, and I very specifically asked the proponents if other options would be acceptable to them, and the answer was no. They interpreted, at least that was my perception, they interpreted our discussions in the council when we explore other alternatives, that those would be supplemental to the naming of the street, not necessarily an alternative to the naming of the street. At least that was my perception from the comments that were made. Again, the chamber expressed some concerns, but particularly as it related to the cost, and that'll be a point of discussion at their next meeting.
Councilmen, let's have a dialogue.
We can certainly do that. We can set up that meeting, then before our meeting on the 17th. We'll discuss it at the 17th with a recommendation. And then the council will make a determination as to whether they want to accept our recommendation or look at some other option.
I'm sorry, are you looking, Ms. Mayor, for a recommendation from?
From us.
From us?
Mhm.
Yes.
From Ms. Anderson and myself? Because I think, I'm not sure that we'll come up with a recommendation from the people that were there, because I think the views were different.
Okay, and even if the two of you don't
Have different views.
necessarily have a consensus recommendation, I still think what we kind of tasked you to do, go out, do the analysis, the research, the meetings, come back to us with, in your view, what do we need to do on a going forward basis? So even if the two of you are not in agreement, I still would like to see it come back as an item. And if the timing is appropriate for the second meeting in February, then let's do it.
Yeah, I misspoke. I'm just looking at the calendar here. I misspoke, Madam Mayor. I think I would prefer that it be the first meeting in March
Okay, very good.
with our recommendation.
Very good, thank you. A few things. One is perhaps something for the Public Works Department to think about. I know that when we do a request for proposal process, that we receive back, I guess in this case, an overwhelming response. Recently, the Workforce Development Board sent out a survey to people who responded to their request for proposal and said, basically, what did you like about our RFP process? What did you not like about our RFP process, how can we improve it? So recognizing that your time is limited, but sometimes getting that feedback can help you to streamline the process and make it go that much more smoothly the next time. So perhaps a recommendation to consider at some point. Ms. Sanders noted that we are hosting the league dinner here, El Centro. I'm sure it's on everyone's calendar for February 25th. It's a Thursday. Do we have a location?
Here in the old post office.
At the old post office, okay. I really hope that all of our department heads are able to attend so we can showcase your talents. We just really appreciate having a really good turnout when you're there. We have been trying, or Sylvia Bermudez has been trying for 2 weeks to get the mayors together to do a LAFCO appointment.
Oh, really?
And so far, the only 2 people who have responded are myself and Mr. Kelly, as far as availability. So we are continuing. I think the last email that went out today was perhaps we could try to get together at lunchtime to make that appointment. So I will definitely keep you posted. We have on our calendars, of course, the strategic planning session for the hospital and the foundation gala for the hospital this Friday, and then the coronation of our king and queen of the Mardi Gras on Friday, as well as the light festival and parade the following Saturday. So, have you been practicing your parade wave, our king?
Last 25 years.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, that kind of wraps it up for council. I'd like to, if you don't mind, we just zip ahead. I think, Mr. Endy, you're headed to Los Angeles. There's one item here. Are we going to need some time on it?
Well, since Mr. Edney is needing to leave, I will sit through it.
Thank you.
I will sit through this one item and not ask for a 5-minute personal privilege.
Very good. We will then convene as redevelopment. Note that all members are present. There was no closed session. Moving on to our consent agenda item. Were there any questions with regard to the EW Corporation financial assistance proposal? I believe this has been in front of us on at least 2 prior occasions. Were there any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Edney, second by Sanders. Please ballot.
Motion carries 5-0.
Last item is an informational item with regard to project and programs reports. Are there any questions for staff with regard to the report?
No questions, but Mr. Solomon and I have been invited to, along with the RDA staff, to go down and meet on Friday at 10:30 a.m. regarding looking at the different structure for a bid program. So that's going to be this Friday at 10:30 a.m.
And I would like to report, actually, I'd like our Parks and Recreation Department Director to come forward with the official announcement with regard to the award that you will be accepting on behalf of the city in March. And I believe it's in Palm Desert, is that correct? Palm Springs.
Yes, we're very excited. We are being recognized by CPRS, the California Parks and Recreation Society. We submitted an award of excellence this year, and we were selected for our summer program brochure, which won an award. So we'll be
Isn't that great?
accepting that. Yeah, we're very excited.
That's an outstanding brochure.
It
Thank you.
is fantastic.
So, and I know they will be coming and formally presenting us with the award at one of our council meetings in the future as well. So,
Fantastic.
Thank
Job
you
well
so
done.
much. Thank you.
All right, I believe we are adjourned.